In 1982, filmmaker Ridley Scott followed up his hugely successful sci-fi horror film Alien with another ambitious sci-fi tale, this time an adaptation of Philip K. Dick's 1968 novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? The story of a Blade Runner, a man tasked with the job of hunting down a group of dangerous androids or replicants. The story explored the relationship between man and machine, what it means to have a soul, and what it means to be human. Various other filmmakers, including Martin Scorsese, had expressed interest in adapting Dick's story, but the job went to Ridley Scott, a man known for his atmospheric visuals and detailed world building. Scott's movie took the post-apocalyptic San Francisco setting of the novel and transferred it to Los Angeles, and used a collision of influences from film noir to cyberpunk to Asian street culture to create a cinematic world the likes of which audiences had never seen before. While the film received a lukewarm reception in 1982, it grew in popularity and respect and is now generally regarded as one of the best science fiction films ever made. 35 years later, it got a sequel directed by Denis Villeneuve, which somehow felt every bit as lavish, thought-provoking, groundbreaking, and epic as Scott's original.
All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain.
Join me as we continue exploring the evolution of man-made monsters, and we dive deep into the murky, rainy, dystopian world of Blade Runner. Welcome back to the evolution of horror. My name is Mike Muncer, and as ever, I am your host. In this podcast, we explore and dissect the history and the evolution of the horror genre, one subgenre at a time, and we are currently in the middle of our 11th series exploring the evolution of man-made monsters, and this is part 16. In this week's episode, as that intro suggested, we are diving into some deep sci-fi territory here to discuss Blade Runner from 1982. We'll be talking specifically about the final cut of the movie, and Blade Runner 2049 from 2017. Both of these discussions will be spoilerific. I mean, if you haven't seen these movies, what are you doing? Go away and watch them before you listen to our discussion. So, joining me to discuss these two absolute bangers, I've got a returning guest. She was here with me last year to discuss a couple of Ozploitation classics, Long Weekend and Razorback, and she's back. She's a writer, critic, lecturer, and co-host of the Sci-Frights podcast, Lindsay Hallam. Hello, Lindsay.
Hi, happy to be back here again.
So lovely.
I did okay last time, I guess.
Of course you did. I mean, you were so brilliant last year. It's a pleasure to have you back. Let me start off by asking you, Lindsay, about this subgenre, sci-fi horror, where those two genres meet, and the world of man-made monsters. What are your thoughts on this kind of subgenre of horror?
I think this is probably one of my favorite subgenres. Because I think about what really got me into horror. Like, I wasn't really like a huge like horror kid. I mean, I did watch things, but I think when I got into, like, I just got into cinema in general, so I was just really into everything.
Yeah.
But what really got me into horror, weirdly enough, was when I was at university and studying film and doing a film theory class. And I just found myself writing about horror and becoming really much more interested in it. And the thing that really got me into it was David Cronenberg.
Ah, okay.
And so I think because, you know, his films are like, he even says that a lot of his, especially his early stuff, are like hypotheses about what the future of humanity and the future of the human body will be. And there was just something about what he was doing, and the kind of cerebral nature mashing up against the very kind of visceral nature of what he was doing, I found really interesting. I'm also just really interested in boundaries. Like when I was younger, it was just this whole thing of like, how far can you go? Like, I was very much into like how, you know, the most extreme things I really wanted to like see and to challenge myself with. And I think mad science definitely pushes the boundaries. I mean, it's pushing boundaries in terms of what is human and what is not. And but also a lot of mad science films, I think, are pushing the boundaries in terms of what can be shown. The use of body horror and extremes. I think, you can say that Human Centipede definitely, I think, is a mad science film.
Absolutely.
So they can be like cerebral and philosophical. They seem, I think, on the surface, they can be quite conservative, that it's all about this whole thing of like warning us that we must not dabble in God's domain.
Yeah.
But I think really like someone like Cronenberg is actually that there's space for this type of cinema to be really transgressive, and also the mix of science fiction and horror. I mean, I've got a podcast now called Sci-Fright.
You do, exactly. I was going to say, you're literally doing exactly this, right? That kind of sci-fi horror crossover. Yeah.
Yes, it's all about. We say we're from the interzone where science fiction meets horror.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's well, the idea with the podcast is that we have a horror film and a science fiction film, and that we choose in relation to a theme. I host the podcast with my partner Liam, who's really into sci-fi, and I'm really into horror, so we're kind of blending that together.
Perfect.
Our two loves.
Yeah.
But often we're finding that a lot of the films that we're talking about are both. Like there's just so much crossover between the two genres.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I started this series by looking at Frankenstein, and it kind of feels like in so many ways both genres started there, right? That idea of the mad science, the science fiction playing God, but also gothic horror as well, right? It's such an amazingly important text for sort of both genres and the directions they went in, you know?
Yeah. The two, I mean, that's what we started off with the podcast with. Like, I started talking about Frankenstein because it's like, both the genres come from this one text.
Amazing.
And it looms large over, like, every time, almost every episode, we end up bringing up Frankenstein. It all seems to go back to Frankenstein.
What did you think of the new one, by the way, the Del Toro one?
Because I love Del Toro, and I love when he talks about his films.
Yeah.
And I know it's such a passion project. It just didn't really hit me like a lot of his other films do. I almost felt it was slightly restrained. He was making some changes to the novel, which was good in some ways. Yeah. But then, I mean, what was happening with Mia Goth's character, the way they changed Elizabeth, they changed his brother, who was a child in the novel, to older. And they were kind of softening, I think, the edges of the creature. I think
that's right. They made everything a bit cleaner, didn't they? A bit softer and a bit cleaner. Yeah.
And it becomes more, and it's obviously all about forgiveness. It's the forgiving of Victor. And I don't know if you deserve the forgiveness.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I know what you mean. But it's true. It's that text still continues to loom large all these like hundreds of years later. It's amazing. And of course, nowadays we're getting so much horror and sci-fi about the dangers of technology, and particularly the dangers of AI, right? What are your thoughts, Lindsay, on AI? Do you trust AI?
No, I hate it. I hate it.
Really?
I found myself just within like the past few weeks looking back at like the 2010s with this nostalgia. And I mean, the films we're talking about today are like all about this nostalgia, but just the time before we just didn't have this in our lives, it just was like, oh, that was great. And of course, I work at a university, so I'm a university lecturer. And, it's just what it seems to have done, I mean, certainly to copyright, it's just run roughshod over that. The threat to art, the whole thing of like that, what it's threatening, the jobs, that we're finding out now are at risk, are all these creative jobs. Yeah. And it's like AI is supposed to be what's going to help us so then we can all be artists, but no, it's working in the other direction. Yeah. And definitely with education, it is this whole thing now that everything you do, you have to think about, well, can people just feed this into ChatGPT why you would want to waste your time at university and then just not actually learn anything. And it's just this whole idea that will we end up with a generation who don't actually learn anything. And it's also just this threat to like the reality. Like, we're not going to be able to trust anything really that we see on screens. Our whole lives are screens. But it's kind of eroded or any a lot of ability to kind of trust. And I think that the potential of that for just on a mass scale to just collapse everything.
Yeah.
There's a lack of regulation. It's just everyone just sees the dollar signs. And like the university I was at previously, they were all in, and the government just seems to be like, yeah, we're all in because it's just about the money. And it just feels like no one's really taking a step back. It's like the train's left the station and it's just like no one's...
I know.
We haven't laid the track down to kind of...
No, completely. And, it's been interesting. The last couple of weeks, we looked at, we talked about Howl in 2001. We talked about Stepford Wives, Demon Seeds. And it's interesting how, obviously, Blade Runner we're about to talk about. It's interesting how these sci-fi writers have been warning us about this for quite a long time at this point, right?
Well, what we're about to talk about is this whole thing about, like, what is this technology doing to us? Is it causing us to lose our humanity? Mm-hmm. It is this whole thing of, like, this lack of empathy. You see all this stuff online. You see atrocities in between adverts, and we all know that how cruel and how inhumane people can be to each other online, and it's it does make you pause.
It does.
I sound like such an old man.
I know.
Yells at cloud like.
I know this is it. We all are, aren't we? But you can't help it. You can't help but feel a little bit scared and dismayed by what's going on. And especially if you're horror fans, and we've been sci-fi fans, and we've been watching stories about this for decades now. So yeah. So speaking of, we're going to talk about Blade Runner this week. Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. There's so much to get into, so I think we're going to just dive straight in. Let's begin by talking about Ridley Scott's Blade Runner from 1982.
All right, so we're in the future in Los Angeles 2019.
2019, remember
I
that?
know. If only.
Yeah.
So you have a group of 4 replicants, and replicants are artificially created humans. They've escaped from an off-world colony where they're used as slave labor, and they've traveled back to Earth illegally. And so tasked to track them down is Rick Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, who is a Blade Runner whose job it is to track down replicants and kill them, or as it's referred to as retire them.
Yeah.
So Deckard goes to the Tyrell Corporation. That's where the replicants are produced, and he meets Tyrell himself, who then introduces him to Rachel, played by Sean Young. Tyrell asks Deckard to give Rachel a Voight-Kampff test, which tests whether someone is human or replicant. And he finds that Rachel is a replicant, but that it takes him a lot longer. He has to ask many more questions than usual to kind of figure that out. And actually, Rachel doesn't know that she's a replicant because Tyrell's implanted these false memories in her. So this makes her easy to control. She doesn't know of her true nature. She doesn't know that she has this shortened lifespan of about 4 years. And that's what's motivating these, they're called Nexus 6 replicants that have traveled to Earth. They're very much aware that their time is running out.
Yes.
So through detective work, Deckard is led to one of the escaped replicants, Zora, who he then just shoots in the back in the middle of the street. He's then told he has to retire Rachel because they've found out that she's a replicant and she's disappeared because Deckard told her she was a replicant. And then he's set upon by one of the other rogue replicants, Leon. He's saved by Rachel, who shoots him in the back. And they end up going back to Deckard's apartment, where a very weird, awkward love scene takes place, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yes.
And then you have the 2 remaining replicants, Roy and Pris. They set about getting to Tyrell through J.F. Sebastian, who had worked as a designer of the replicants. The 3 of them go to Tyrell, where Roy pleads with Tyrell to prolong his life. Tyrell refuses. Roy kills him. Then Deckard goes to Sebastian's apartment. He's attacked by Pris, but he then kills her. Roy then chases him around the apartment. He chases Deckard around. They both end up on the roof. Deckard slips off the roof, but is saved by Roy, who then delivers his final words and then kind of shuts down. And so the Deckard goes back to his apartment and he runs off with Rachel into a very uncertain future.
Lovely. Yes, absolutely. So first of all, Lindsay, what do you think of this movie generally, and what's your sort of history with it?
I love it. I think it is a masterpiece. I think it is one of the best films. I think it's one of the best science fiction films, absolutely, hands down. I remember I first saw it. So I first saw it. I taped it off television, and it would have been when I was quite young. I don't know how I found out about Blade Runner, but I maybe just as I was getting into films and learning about them, it must have come up.
Yeah.
And it would have. So what the version that I saw that was on television was the original version. It must have been around the time that the director's cut came out.
Yeah.
But obviously they were still showing the original version on television.
Right.
And so I remember trying to watch it a couple of times and I kept falling asleep.
Right, yeah, yeah.
So this was the original version. And then I think they released the director's cut on video, and then I would have seen that, and that's when it all made sense to me, like how good it was. Yeah. It was definitely watching the director's cut. Obviously, with the original, it has the voiceover, which I remember listening. I've listened just researching into this. I listened back to some of the voiceover.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so dreadful.
It's not good.
It's obviously Harrison Ford really does not want to do it, and I don't know. Maybe I think he was trying to bluff them, and like I'm just going to do this so badly they can't put it in, and they did it anyway. Yeah. But then, so it's definitely something that I've seen several times, many times over the years. My partner, Liam, who is the sci-fi nerd, like his two favorite films are 2001: A Space Odyssey and Blade Runner.
Ah, okay.
So we have had many, many conversations about the film. And actually, one of the best screenings I've ever had of Blade Runner is Secret Cinema did it a few years ago.
That's right. I was there.
Back in the 2010s.
Yeah.
The golden years. Yeah. And it was somewhere like, it was because they take this whole space and they just created like the city.
Yeah, they did.
And you would walk around and everyone had to dress up, which was fun.
Yeah.
And you were told you had to bring an umbrella.
Yeah.
Because it was this place in Canning Town and they made it rain inside.
Yeah.
And then you just walked around and everything was set up exactly like the city. There was even the club where like Zora works.
Yeah.
There was something there. There was people performing. It was so amazing.
It was amazing.
And then, Oh, did you go?
I did. I went as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. Really good.
It was. And then you sit down and watch the film and then it keeps going afterwards.
Yeah.
So
I know.
You're immersed in the space. You watch the film and then you come out and you kind of still get to live there for a bit longer. So it was just... It was amazing. Yeah.
And that is what is so brilliant about this movie, isn't it? I really enjoy this movie. It took me a couple of goes. Actually, funnily enough, very similar to you, Lindsay. I remember as a kid falling asleep in it at least twice when I was young. And I don't even know if that might have been the director's cut too, but it is quite a slow, it's a vibe movie in a lot of ways, right? And I think what this film is impeccable at is the look, the vibe, the music, the world building. It lends itself to something like Secret Cinema because it's so gorgeous and immersive, and just the imagery, the cityscapes, the Vangelis music. I love all of it. I love everything about the way this movie is made technically. I think for a while I found the story a bit sort of cold, maybe, and I was never able to kind of like... I've always kind of appreciated the film intellectually, I suppose, but I've never really felt that kind of love for it that a lot of people do, like your partner does, for example. And I know lots of people who say Blade Runner is like one of their favourite movies of all time. And there's always something just slightly missing for me in this movie. I don't quite know what it is. I don't know if it's the character of Deckard, and he's quite a blank, deliberately quite a blank slate of a character, not really somebody who... I feel like I can kind of emotionally invest in a way. I just feel like there's a distance with this movie. You know, even though I can really appreciate it technically, it's never been one of my personal favourites because I don't have that kind of emotional draw to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I think the thing that has grown with me all the time, and it's similar to 2001. 2001 is also very slow.
Yeah.
And it's about ideas. It's very philosophical.
It is.
It is all about the kind of the nature of human. What does it mean to be human? So it's asking these big questions. I think that's what's made it grow in my appreciation over the years, is that it is a film that the more you watch it, the more you get out of it. And every time you watch it, you get something new.
Yes.
And there is just so much ambiguity to it that you can just, like, some of my thoughts about the film have changed over the years. It's also that thing of like these films that stay the same, but you change as well. So then as you get older, you maybe feel mortality a bit more. So yeah, as well. So I just,
absolutely.
It's just kind of infinitely rewatchable because there's just, you're just never going to solve it because there's just so much there, I think.
I love that about it. I love, all of that kind of ambiguity and those questions around it and the characters and the themes and the motivations. And we should quickly you mentioned it already, but we should briefly talk about maybe at the top the different versions of this film, I suppose. The version that I watched in preparation for this, and I believe you did too, was the final cut, right? The Blade Runner, the final cut. But there have been a few different versions, right? So the theatrical cut is the version you mentioned, Lindsay, which has the terrible voiceover, right? Which is the one that Ridley Scott himself was not happy with, did not sign off on one. I believe that was the studio that had kind of meddled with that theatrical cut. Right?
Yes, so he had final cut taken away from him from that original version. I mean, he was trying, there was a lot of not great test screening. So he was trying to crack it. He was trying to figure out, because I believe there was a first assembly cut that was, several hours long.
Right.
And he kind of said, and he kind of, at the end of it, he was like, well, that was marvelous, but what the fuck does it mean? and so I think they were trying to always shape it. So there was the original version, which had the voiceover and the happy ending that was tacked on. That was enforced upon the film.
Yeah.
I believe there always were voiceovers, but the voiceover was definitely put in to try and fill gaps for people.
Yes, take away that ambiguity, basically. Yeah.
And then also supposedly there was an international theatrical version. So outside of America, there was a version that had, I think, a few extra minutes of basically extra violence.
Okay.
So that came out around the same time, 1982. Then there was a work print from 82 that existed, and that around 1990 started to get shown around because that work print, I think, didn't have the voiceover, and it had some of the things that ended up being taken out, and I didn't have the tacked on happy ending that included some outtakes from like The Shining, fields and things.
Yeah.
And so because the screenings in 1990 of the work print were happening, Ridley Scott wasn't happy with that because for him it wasn't completely finished. It was still a bit rough. Like they used a temp track for some of the music from like Planet of the Apes or something in there. So he was like, please don't keep screening this. But apparently these work print screenings were selling out. So then the studio, Warner Brothers, was like, all right, well, we can maybe do a proper version of this. They called it the director's cut. There was some direction from Ridley Scott, but it still wasn't exactly, I think, what he wanted, which is why you end up with the final cut.
Yeah.
But the three main changes was the removal of the voiceover, the insertion of like a dream sequence with the unicorn.
Yes.
And getting rid of that happy ending. And then 2007, for the 25th anniversary, was this final cut, which is Ridley Scott getting back final cut. This is the first time he actually had final cuts. That's why it's called final cut. And he had complete control. Contains the original full-length version of the Unicorn Dream. All the violence and alternative edits from the international cut are also inserted back in as well. So we actually have this box set that contains all five versions: the original, the international, the director's cut, the work print, and the final cut.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Oh my god! Yeah, and the final cut, just like the grade on it, is a bit different to the director's cut too, isn't it? The way it's lit, it looks a bit sort of greener, but it looks a bit. I think again more what Ridley Scott kind of wanted it to look like visually.
Because I know that they ran out of time when they were filming the Roy Batty's death scene,
right?
And so when he releases the dove, it's daylight, and they're like, oh. So I think they went back and like made it nighttime again and things like that. Yeah.
So obviously this is an adaptation of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the Philip K. Dick story. And I guess, like, you know, maybe we should just talk a little bit about that and about the development of this film, because the story became kind of it was late 60s, right? And already it became a bit of a hot property. And I believe there were other filmmakers like Martin Scorsese interested in directing adaptations, right? It seemed like that was something that a lot of filmmakers kind of wanted to get their hands on.
I know. I would love Scorsese. I mean, Scorsese's never done any real genre work.
No.
So for him to have maybe done this, I would love to see it. Yeah, I think there were different people circling around, but then it ends up getting to Ridley Scott, who had obviously had the huge hit with Alien about 3 years earlier. And I also found out that he had been offered Dune, but had dropped out after a few months of development. So he was obviously looking for a next sci-fi property. So he was offered Blade Runner, which was then called Dangerous Days, by the producer Michael Dearly. And the idea was that Ridley Scott, he liked elements of the screenplay. I found this quote. He says, "I was drawn to the moral content of the screenplay. Its central conceit was the idea of an officially sanctioned killer murdering what were, after all, real people." So this moral quandary at the center of it. And then also he says the graphic possibilities appeal to him as well. So, yeah, I think Ridley Scott, I mean, for me, Ridley Scott, I find him a bit hit and miss.
Yeah.
If I had to pick a Scott brother, I'm a Tony Scott girl.
Yeah,
all the way,
fair,
maybe more
fair.
than Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Even though Alien masterpiece, there's masterpiece, but yeah. But because I think for Ridley Scott, it does depend on the script, and I think his strength is world building.
God, yes.
He can do that. That's absolutely his wheelhouse. And so, yeah, I think he did do some good work. He was working with Hampton Fancher, who wrote the original screenplay, and he was trying to, I think, build more of the world of the film, and there were some other aspects of the story and aspects of the writing he wanted Fancher to embellish. Apparently, he was also influenced by the heavy metal comics. So I think he gave some of these comics to Hampton Fancher and was like, "Yeah, this is the kind of thing that I want." And then they had a falling out, which from the sounds of it, Ridley Scott fell out with everybody. He didn't get along with anyone on this
sounds
shoot.
about right. Yeah. He's known for being a bit of a grump, isn't he, Ridley?
Yeah. So then they bring in David Peoples, and I was watching the documentary about the making of the film called Dangerous Days, 3.5 hours long.
Oh my God.
Which is on this huge box set, and he was basically saying that Hampton Fancher is very cerebral, and David Peoples, his style is just simpler.
Right.
But he was good at just filling in some plot holes. He was good at dialogue. He wrote some of the original versions of the Roy Batty speech, which was then kind of worked on a bit further, improvised by Rutger Hauer. But I think, with Ridley Scott, I think there were even another thing that was said in this documentary was that, you know, they have a production designer, but really Ridley Scott was almost functioning as the production designer, the head of the art department. So he was really working on the design of the film, the creation of the city, especially this idea of, you know, shooting mostly at night. You know, he just says it makes the set look better. Yeah. And about creating layers of the world. But also there's some personal aspects. I believe that not long before he started making the film, he lost his older brother to cancer.
Right.
So this whole idea of loss of control over death It's something that was speaking to him. And in this Dangerous Days documentary, there's an interview with Tony Scott, and he says, I think this is one of Ridley's most personal films.
Wow.
And that the look of the film is like, it almost makes him feel like, reminds him of when they grew up, like the fact that it is always raining. They grew up in the north of England, Newcastle area, that he's actually, there is so much of about the look of the film, the design of the film, but there is these personal connections there.
I love that
he's putting in there.
And I think that's so interesting. And it is obviously, as you've mentioned, so many people involved. It's such a big collaborative thing, but I think you're right. Like, so much of it was Ridley Scott, wasn't it? That world building, those visuals. And it's so interesting. Let's talk about that design of the city and just the general look of this film. You've got Jordan Cronenweth, who's the cinematographer, but also just that beautiful kind of cityscape. You know, the Los Angeles, like you say, the rain at night. It's got this really interesting kind of mix of kind of Eastern and Western culture as well, right? Like, how do you find that whole future LA that he creates here?
I mean, a lot has been, so teaching horror and science fiction, a lot has been written about Blade Runner, and a lot of it was talking about it. You know, it comes out in 1982, and you know, the whole thing about the 80s is that it's very much this kind of postmodern context. That there is this blending or pastiche of all these different references and images. And even looking into how they made the set was actually made from all these bits and pieces from other film sets that apparently there's bits of like the Millennium Falcon and stuff from Close Encounters and spaceships from other films, and like even the fact that the original happy ending had these bits from The Shining. And then the dream sequence of the unicorn is taken from tests that I think it was Ridley Scott's next film, Legend. So there's bits of other films in there. And so this whole idea, you know, when people talk about postmodernism, it's almost like that it is this idea of everything being made of references to other films, that there's no actual originality, and almost like there's no meaning at all, that there is no surface to it. And then from there, you had kind of Jean Baudrillard talking about simulation and how, and he was kind of arguing that in the 20th century, all of our reality, all of our experience, or the way we process events is always mediated through all the media that we're consuming, that almost we can no longer distinguish between the real and what he calls hyperreal, which is like the real without origin. And he kind of posited that we were starting to live in this world of simulation. We're completely detached from the real. One of the things I remember, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something that Baudrillard was talking about, like Los Angeles, and that Disney World exists so that we think that Los Angeles is real or something.
Right, yeah.
It was just, so I think the Los Angeles in Blade Runner is very much doing this thing. It's this place of stuff on top of stuff, producing more stuff. There's all this waste. I mean, when Pris first shows up and she's walking and then she hides and she holds herself in trash. So it's all this, like, Earth or Los Angeles or Earth is like this place that's, you know, everything that's been discarded, it's been left behind. Yeah, everyone's surrounded by the advertising and the screens and the lights and distractions. And so it's this kind of mass production and consumption that leads everything to be overwhelmed. So I think, you know, the fact that it's also using this imagery from the past, the noirish elements. And it's also kind of subverting this idea of Los Angeles. When you think of Los Angeles, it's bright and sunny, and what you see is wet and dark and rainy. So I think, you know, it's just, there's just so much going on. So I think it is, you know, people say it is the argument sometimes that, it's all style and no substance. But I think the style is absolutely the substance.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and also, you know, the blending of the different cultures that you mentioned, the East and West. It's also blending from, American and Asian cultures. You've got this idea of city speak. Where Edward James Olmos, who plays Gaff, he he apparently did a lot of the work of developing city speak.
Oh, wow.
And so, that because he first had this idea of maybe it being somewhat like Esperanto, but then he was using words and phrases from other languages. I think uses some Hungarian in there when he first meets Deckard. And also the look of Edward James Olmos, he wanted to look kind of multi-ethnic.
Right. Yeah.
So he put in like blue contact lenses and things like that. There is very much this multicultural space, and there's been a lot written also about that aspect of it, because it's showing this city of the future as a multicultural space, but also it's a dystopian space that it's almost seen as this negative space. But to me, it also feels like it's very much an extension of like colonialism, because one of the first things we see up in the sky is an ad for off-world colonies.
Right.
So it does take the idea like from Metropolis of like vertically, like higher up is wealthier people, the lower people are on the ground. And looking up, it's saying the off-world colonies. I think it even says a place of golden opportunity, which to me just summons up ideas of like pioneering and going to the Old West would have been a golden opportunity.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like maybe ideas of like the white flight, which, kind of after World War II, a lot of white people moved from urban spaces to suburban spaces, and then you had these kind of negative stereotyping of the suburbs in opposition to like the urban. But you have this whole thing that the white and wealthy have gone off world. So it is all the people that have been left behind. That it is this colonialism that has gone beyond the planet. So I think that there's just so much there.
So much, absolutely. Yeah, it's so interesting, and I love the stuff you said about how there is this kind of everything is a reference to something else or something older, and I guess again like that leans into the themes of the film, that there is nothing new, nothing original, nothing genuine as well. Everything is a copy or a replicant. This idea that there are no real animals, right? Snakes and birds and owls. Nothing is natural and new. Everything is some sort of recreation or replication, of course, right? And again, it's like it's all there in every frame of this movie, isn't it? It's so
the technology is replacing all that. Where have the animals gone? I'm assuming they're all extinct.
Right, exactly. There's moments, isn't there, where people talk about how they could never afford a real animal or whatever, and it's like, they must be like super, super rare, I guess, in this world at this point. It's really interesting. And so what about the character of Deckard then, played by Harrison Ford, our Blade Runner? What do you think of him here in this? What do you think of this character, first of all, Lindsay? What do you make of him?
I think he's awful. I think he is, I guess you could say anti-hero, but I think he is really not a good person.
Right.
He kills for a living. And the whole thing of like, well, he's just killing replicants, but they look like humans. Like there is the scene where he shoots Zora in the back.
Yeah.
Which is just, and the thing is that people in the street, how do they know that he's killing a replicant?
Right, exactly.
How, and not just a woman in the back. And the way that she falls, and she keeps falling into glass, and it's really violent, and it's really, visceral, the way that she's going through the guy, and there's cutting up, and and so the film kind of shows that humans are lacking in humanity, and it's the obvious thing that the replicants are kind of more human than human, and that I think this is the whole thing of like, I think it is this technologized world robs us of our humanity. Yeah, and so I think the way he treats Rachel, which we'll get into, I'm sure later on, but even just that scene where he tells her like, he throws her memories back in her face. I'm like, I know your memories. They're not yours. Yeah. And just the way he does that, it's so callous. Yeah, absolutely. And he's just, so I think Harrison Ford is actually perfect for the role. Yeah. I know that I think Hampton Fancher at one point wanted Robert Mitchum to play from the film noirish character. I think he would have been too old at this point. Yeah. And then they also met with Dustin Hoffman, which would have been interesting, but I think you need you need someone who looks like Harrison Ford, I think, because
Yeah.
he's definitely subverting the hero image from Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Those are the very prototypical hero type. I mean, you know, Han Solo is supposed to be kind of a bit anti-hero-ish, but he's not. He's good.
Yeah,
He's good.
totally.
We never question like that. He's basically good at heart. I don't think Deckard is.
No, that's really interesting. Yeah.
But there's something about the case and about the replicants that does seem to get to him. He's obviously just been doing this for so long. He's killed so many replicants that, I mean, what really is the difference between killing a replicant and killing a human?
Right.
Really.
Exactly.
They look the same. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's that point when Rachel saves him.
Yep.
That just something changes.
Yeah.
That he's always saved by replicants and he always destroys them.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, he's always saved. He's saved by Rachel. He's saved by Roy at the end. He's saved again in the next film. But he just destroys. He brings death. So I mean, definitely what you say before. He is a blank slate. There is really not much to him.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's right. It's him that brings that kind of maybe slight coldness to the movie in a way. But then you've got all the replicants. What do you make? I mean, again, like these replicants, I think for so many people, some of the most interesting elements, the most interesting characters of the film. And again, they're not. Are there any replicants in this movie that are out and out villains?
No, I think they are. They are the extension of Frankenstein's creature. I think they are immensely sympathetic. They just want to live. And there's just the cruelty of. I mean, that's definitely Tyrell is also just so incredibly cruel. He creates these beings, gives them, I guess, this consciousness. And I guess the emotions are given to them just as a form of control. He creates these beings with this consciousness and just gives them only 4-year lifespan.
Yeah.
And that whole thing, their life is kind of like nasty, brutish and short. Like they're just created, given this consciousness and then just made as slave labor or as pleasure models. And so there's such a cruelty that only can come from humanity in the creation of the replicants. And so, I find them immensely sympathetic. Also, again, as another kind of Star Wars comparison, to me, they're like the rebellion in Star Wars. Yeah. They're the ones they're fighting like a tyranny and like an evil empire.
Absolutely.
Which is a corporation. I think around, it would have been about 10 years before. I don't know when the film Westworld was.
Yeah.
Where it was this whole thing of like, in that you've got the kind of robots in the theme park that are being used in all these different ways by people, and how they get conscious, they kind of come to life and then start killing people. Yeah. And so, I think there's kind of an extension of that. But then in Westworld, they're just killer robots. Whereas in Blade Runner, there's so much more to them. Yeah. And something that really struck me this last time viewing the film is the character of Rachel.
Yeah.
It's like this whole thing, like she feels that she's human. She has these emotions and memories, and everyone's just saying, no, it's all a lie. No, you're not a human.
Yeah.
And there was just something that struck me in Sean Young's performance that was just, she's just really sad and tragic.
Really sad. Yeah. Absolutely. I thought that too on this watch. I was like, God, there's something really fucking sad and tragic about this character. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. She's, in a lot of ways, she's the heart of this film, actually, I would say. And of course, I mean, and of course, this is the meat of the film and the philosophical questions that this story and, you know, even the title, right? Do androids dream of electric sheep? This idea of like, what does it mean to be human? If you are an android, if you are a robot or a synthetic thing, but you have memories, you have dreams, you have feelings, you look human, you sound human, like, then what is the difference, I suppose, right? And I guess that's the nub of, I mean, so much great sci-fi is that, actually, but I think, you know, that's what this movie really is, all the way down to the ambiguity of, actually, is our main character even a replicant, you know? So I think, you know, and it does that so well, this movie, doesn't it? I think kind of just like explores that blurry line. You don't really trust anything or anyone that you see in this movie. Anyone could be a replicant, I think.
And I guess that's like, are any of us humans anymore?
Yeah.
Because we have been dehumanized to this point. And then if you get to the point that now that replicants are being made not knowing what they are.
Yeah.
Doesn't everyone would have to ask the question then? How can anyone know?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
How can anyone? So I think the whole thing of like, is Deckard a replicant or a human? I mean, every character in the film maybe needs to almost ask that question.
Exactly. Yeah, and I love that about it. What about Deckard? Maybe this is something we can talk about more as we go, but is he a replicant, Lindsay, in your opinion?
I mean, to me, it always seemed like it goes against the whole idea of the film for him to be a replicant. Because he seems to be the epitome of what humans have become, which is completely dehumanized, demoralized, killers for money. This whole thing of like just doing anything for money. And yeah, the cruelty that he has just feels very human as well. But then I know that Ridley Scott always maintains that he's a replicant, but Harrison Ford says no, he's human. So you even had that tension that the director was directing him as a replicant, but the actor was playing him as a human. I mean, there's some clues that he could be a replicant. I mean, the most obvious bit is there's a scene with Rachel where she has, because all the replicants, at some point you see a bit of a glint of red in their eye.
Yeah.
And there's a shot with two of them, and both of them had the red glint in their eye.
Yes. It's very quick, but it's there. Yeah.
And this whole idea of the vision of the unicorn, a vision, or is it a dream? Is it a memory?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, unicorns don't exist. Unicorns aren't real. His photos that are around his house are like, because, the whole thing of Rachel has all these photos. And then around Deckard's house, he has photos and like around the piano, and they all look very old. I'm like, if this is your family, then I'm like, if this is 2019 and you're in your 30s, why do these look like they're from the early 1900s?
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So I think there are definitely clues in there. But for me, I've always felt like it doesn't make sense for Deckard to be a replicant. It only makes more sense to me that he is a human, because he is also so different, I think, to the replicants. But then also I think that it has to be an unanswerable question. I don't think you can ever really know, because I think it's now the whole idea, like Rachel's existence is like, how can you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't know yourself anymore, because...
Yeah, the whole point is, he will never know, we will never know, I suppose. I think I've always assumed from the ending that the film is kind of very, very heavily suggesting he is, purely because of the unicorn thing and because of the little paper unicorn that Edward James almost leaves him at the end, kind of as if to suggest we created your dreams or your memories, or we know what you dream about, or whatever.
But then I also wondered, does that mean that all the Blade Runners are replicants? Like, maybe I was also someone kind of thinking, was that Gaff saying like, I'm
one of these?
I see unicorns too. Like, how?
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah.
It's deliberately very blurred and ambiguous, right? And I think that also comes into play with the Voight-Kampff machine, the Voight-Kampff test, right? This way of apparently determining whether somebody is a replicant or a man, where they get like given all these kind of hypotheticals and these questions, and their reactions are read in their eye, I suppose. But even that is, I think the film proves here, particularly with the test and when he does it on Rachel, like the Voight-Kampff machine is also kind of a little bit vague and wishy-washy, right? It doesn't exactly determine, Yeah,
and it's all focused on the eye.
Yeah.
And so there must be something about the way the eye also reacts.
Yes.
Because that's what they're really focusing on and kind of enlarging and looking at. And this the whole thing of the eye as a window to the soul.
Exactly. And that idea of, again, do these things have souls, right? That gets brought up in 2049 a lot as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that somehow, how can you physically see the soul or not? Or is there something? Yeah. But I guess it's just the differences is, I guess, is these are created as products, but then the film shows that we've all been made into products. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and also the humans seem to lack empathy. Mm-hmm. So then how would they be any different in the Voigt-Kampff test? I don't know.
Exactly. There are plenty of humans that could have answered those questions the way that Rachel answers them in the test, right? Like, if there was a wasp on you, or what would you do? I'd kill it. Like, I don't know. There's probably people that would say that, right? You know.
I mean, it is an odd. It's an odd test. I mean, the questions.
Yeah.
I guess the whole thing, like, it always sticks out to me is the question about the tortoise, and I guess that's the whole thing of this whole idea of like,
yes,
it's saying you're doing this. Why would you be doing this? And you would certainly, I mean, that's thinking about it makes me, you get really like, oh, that's awful. So I don't know. It's funny because it's I mean, when I used to teach, I used to have a module on horror and science fiction. And I would teach Frankenstein in class. And one of the things I would always ask the class is the creature human? And it would always set off these amazing discussions, and everyone would end up getting very philosophical about, because what is it that makes humans? Is it the emotions, or is it having the human body, or is it that we live and die? And so it was always one of my favorite questions to kind of drop on them, and they would always get into it. Everyone when you do ask, what does it mean to be human and things, I think people always do get kind of interested and involved in that, answering that question.
Absolutely. It's so interesting. It's such a big topic, isn't it? And some of some of my favorite sci-fi shows, I'm a massive fan of the Battlestar Galactica. That is exactly this kind of same theme, isn't it? And I think it is really interesting. You can really kind of go down the rabbit hole with these kinds of themes. You mentioned, we've talked about sci-fi and horror and that crossover. Is there any horror in this film, do you think? Are there shades of horror here?
I think what's really central to this film is the idea of the uncanny.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea of uncanny is that something that's familiar but not familiar, you can't quite place it. Something just doesn't seem quite right and seems a bit off.
Yes.
And there's the whole idea of the uncanny valley of when, in technology, that as things get closer to human, almost indistinguishable, we sometimes it unsettles you, or it makes you think, oh, there's something
off.
It's repulsing also, almost. Like, I find when like CGI, like when people de-age or things like that, I'm always, for some reason, I can't stop looking at the mouth, because there's something about the mouth and the jaw that always just looks a bit wrong, and so I fixate on it. So completely. But I think this whole idea of like, well, if you go back to the original idea of the uncanny, and you had, Sigmund Freud wrote an article on the uncanny, and then before that, I think it was Ernst Jentsch, and there's this whole idea of this uncanniness coming from this story by E.T.A. Hoffman, The Sandman, which is where in that what I think it's the main character falls in love with a woman who turns out to be a very lifelike doll.
Yes.
And so it's this whole thing that he's fallen in love with her, but then finds out she's not even human. And so this whole idea of the automaton and the human and it becoming indistinguishable. And that's kind of, and I think Jentsch in particular was saying that that's kind of the seat of uncanniness. That unsettling feeling. And then Freud, I think he talked also about in that story, there's the Sandman character who I think comes in and like he robs people's eyes. And so and I think Freud said something about the idea of being robbed of one's eyes is also linked to this kind of feeling of uncanniness. And I think throughout the Blade Runner, the first one, is all the eye imagery.
It's
all these eyes. One of the first images is an eye. There's the focus on the eyes in the Voigt-Kampff test. And And this whole idea, the eyes are just so vulnerable, permeable. And like, there's something like, you know, when violence is done to eyes, it really is the most ickiest, unsettling.
Yeah, there's a fair bit of kind of body horror in this film that I forget about. And there's a lot of like, thumbs in the eyes action, isn't there?
There's a lot of violence to the eyes. And there's the character played by James Hong who says, I only make eyes. He just does eyes.
Yes.
And so there's all these eyes in bag, and his room is, and there's one bit where I think it's Leon, he sticks his hand into like some goo that they're creating the eyes. So there's just all this. So this idea of uncanniness, I think, is very central to the film.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think uncanny is there from the very beginning. And I think you really feel it, I think, when we get to the character of J.F. Sebastian, and when he takes Pris to his weird, empty apartment block or whatever that is so dark and almost gothic, right? And then he brings her into his apartment. And there are these like small like dolls, automatons, all these different things. And it's like you're in some sort of clown house type, house of horrors or something, I think, when we're in there. And again, there is something of kind of traditional classic uncanny horror in those sequences.
Yeah, and there's even the bit towards the end when Pris puts herself in there, puts the veil on, and she stands there. And so again, she's indistinguishable
oh my God.
from the dolls. So and I mean poor JF, it's sad, but
I know,
like when he says I make friends, and it's like as in God. I make my friends.
It's creepy. It's a little bit Ed Gein-esque as well. It's kind of sad and creepy at the same time. I love it. And I think that's it. I think there is I mean, obviously this film is first and foremost a sci-fi movie, but there are elements of horror in its visuals and its vibes, like you say, that uncanny running throughout the movie, which I really love. And as well as Sebastian, I think the other kind of obviously very creepy character is Roy Batty, a performance that people have celebrated now for decades, this Rutger Hauer performance. What do you think of him in this?
I mean, I think Rutger Hauer is just so incredible.
Yeah.
I just love him in the film. I think Roy is almost more the hero to me than Deckard is. I feel much more sympathy for him. Like, he just wants to live.
He does.
That's all he wants.
Yeah.
And like one of the first things I think we see of him is his clenched fist right at the beginning, because he's obviously starting to, I don't know, shut down or whatever. He's feeling, and he says, time enough. And it's like this whole idea is like, I've got just enough time to do this one last thing. Yeah. Which turns out to be, I think he's going to find Tyrell. And, at first you might think it's just to get revenge, again, like Frankenstein's creature. But actually, when he finally gets to Tyrell, he's like pleading, saying, can you do this? I want more life, please. I want. Yeah. So he's like, he just wants to, he meet his maker.
Yeah.
But he was, and so it ends up becoming revenge. And he says, I want more life, Father. So it's like, I'm looking to you as my father, please, some mercy. He doesn't get it. He also says at one point, I've done what did he say? Something like, I've done many questionable things. So obviously, So, and I think he says it a couple of times that I've done questionable things. That obviously just as in, as a kind of enforced, like enslaved labor,
right?
He's had to probably do, awful things. And that's what he was trying to escape on. And then he says, I've done questionable things. And Tyrell's like, incredible things.
Right.
And it's like, but obviously what he's been made to do is weighing down on him, like, morally. And Tyrell doesn't have that morality that Roy has.
Yeah.
Because Roy's like, no, you've done incredible things. I'm like, no, he's probably, I'm assuming, maybe just had to kill maybe a lot of his own. Something's driven him to rebel and to escape.
Yeah.
So there's almost he's weighed down, and his final words. It's like he's feeling the weight of everything. It's just such a short life.
Yes.
And he wants more of it, but then also he's burdened by what he's had to do, obviously, in that very short life.
Well, exactly. And that is what's so tragic about that final iconic monologue, isn't it? I think that in his very short life, the amount that he's experienced, the amount that he's done, the amount that he's seen, obviously, right? And that I've seen things people wouldn't believe, all of that stuff, again, it just kind of very deliberately is blurring the line of this guy is human, right? Essentially, like, this guy sounds like he's talking like he has a soul, I suppose, in that moment.
Seeing things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain.
Apparently Rutger Hauer himself rewrote and added to some of that little speech that he gives at the end there. And obviously it's such a beautiful, iconic moment at this point in time. And again, it kind of blurs this character that until this point we had seen, or I had always seen, kind of as a more of a villain type character, right? And Rutger Hauer pulls off, again, this beautiful balance, this uncanny balance of being kind of menacing and also kind of sad and sympathetic at the same time, you know?
And the fact that he saves Deckard at the end.
Yeah.
He's been chasing him around. He knows he's got, but he knows he's going to die.
Yeah.
And his final act, I mean, he asked for mercy from his father, didn't get it. And then his final act is this.
He grants mercy.
On Deckard. Also, I guess, and there's some Christ-like imagery. I mean, the fact that he's just suddenly got this dove.
Absolutely.
But I think, isn't he been pierced through the hand with a nail? So nailed in the hand.
Yeah.
And he's got this dove that releases as he dies, goes up.
You can see why film school classes around the world have watched and studied this film for decades, right? Yeah. But it is a beautiful moment. It really is. Let me go back and ask you a bit more about Rachel before we wrap up on this, because again, you know, there's, like you said, especially watching it this time, there is some really interesting stuff to do with Rachel and his kind of strange romance, if we want to call it that, with, you know, her romance with Deckard. What do you think? What do you make of that kind of whatever happens to them? Do they have sex? Do they have some sort of it's a strange romance, isn't it?
Because again, the whole thing of like everything about Deckard is like, is he capable of love? I mean, the whole thing is like, is she capable of love? She's a replicant. Right. We don't know. Mm-hmm. But then I also think, like, is he capable of love? He doesn't seem to have any emotion, empathy. He's kind of, but something about her, like, maybe awakens something with him. Mm. But then there is their love scene, which is really, she's kind of trying to leave and he stops her and he pushes her. So it's really violent. It's not good,
right?
And I think he's, and it's this whole thing of like, why is he treating? So something about her has got to him, and I don't know if it's that he is treating her this way because he views her as less than human. Yeah. So he can do this because, you know, this whole idea of like a lot of these particularly female presenting replicants are pleasure models. Mm-hmm. That's what they're used for. So that's how he's treating her. Or is he resentful of her that she's bringing up these feelings in him, so he's trying to like get rid of them? And this whole idea of, can she give consent at all? I don't think so. Yeah. Because he says, "Tell me you want me," and when she says it very robotically.
Yeah, completely.
And then it's this whole thing, is it just, and then it, you know, it's supposedly, you know, it does seem like it does become consensual. Mm-hmm. But then is it just her programming that she has to relent because that's, you know, she's a replicant, that's maybe part of her programming.
Yeah.
That I don't think it is just this great love transcends all.
No.
Because I don't know if Deckard is capable of it. He's maybe trying to claw back some humanity, and somehow she's sparking that in him. But he certainly doesn't know how to express it properly. Yeah. And one of the other things in the Dangerous Days documentary is they shot a lot more of that scene.
Oh, really?
And it does become much more graphic. Like And I think it was the editor was like, oh, it's much more sensual.
Right.
And I'm like, but I don't know if that would have, with the way it begins, I don't know if it then becomes that would
right.
be.
Yeah. It's almost better
right
left
message.
ambiguous, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, because I think, Deckard is not nice. He's not good.
No.
Which again is why I think it makes more sense that he's a human, because I kind of feel like maybe a replicant would have been there's some more tenderness. You see that tenderness with Pris and Roy.
Yeah.
Pris is used as this pleasure model, but Roy doesn't use her that way. Like when he finds her and she's died, he leans over and kisses her, and and so. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. There's again, it goes back to what I said at the very beginning about how I feel about this film, but there's no warmth there, right, between those characters. And I guess to wrap up, because we've still got to talk about the sequel, I want to ask you about that, how you then interpret the ending, when he's saved by Roy, and that final brief moment where he kind of, he disappears in the lift with Rachel. How do you see that ending? How do you interpret that ending?
I think it is just completely ambiguous.
Yeah.
Like the rest of the film. I think you mentioned before the origami unicorn. What does that mean? That could mean so many things. I mean, I love Deckard's nod just before he turns and goes out with her, because he's there and there's the line plays again, I guess in his head, from Gav saying it's too bad she won't live, but then again, who does?
Right.
And it's the whole thing of like, we're all going to die. And it's this whole thing of, it's this uncertain future. Maybe she's going to die any second now, but then maybe any of us are going to die any second now. Who knows? None of us know how long we have.
Exactly.
And so, and I don't know, I just really like the nod where it's like, look, who lives? She won't live, but then who does?
Right.
So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love that. It's a big ambiguous question mark of an ending at the end of a big ambiguous question mark of a movie, right? Well, I want to wrap up on this movie because we've got to move on to the sequel. But first of all, we're going to head on over to this week's Wild About Horror because, of course, I mean, we've already mentioned Freud and the uncanny at least once in this conversation. Of course, Freudian psychoanalyst and cinephile Mary Wilde has some thoughts that she wants to discuss on Ridley Scott's Blade Runner.
Hey Mike, Mary Wilde here, with some thoughts on Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, a world drenched in artificial intelligence, where humanity is no longer a biological category, but a trembling psychological state. Blade Runner is a foundational text of cyberpunk, and beneath the dystopian spectacle lies an extraordinary meditation on the unconscious, the vulnerability of identity, and the terror of confronting technology that reflects us a little too precisely. We begin in a decaying Los Angeles, drifting through smokestacks, giant screens, and the phosphorescence of advertising. The distinction between human and machine has eroded to the thinnest of thresholds. The replicants, bioengineered androids, walk among us, trained to serve and then discarded after a preset lifespan. Their memories are implanted and their histories manufactured. Desires unfold inside bodies that were never meant to last, and yet they want to live. From the beginning, the film positions memory as the core of identity. For the replicants, memory functions like a psychic prosthesis, the scaffolding of a self. Rachel, for instance, believes she is human because she can recall childhood moments. These recollections, however, belong to someone else. They were uploaded into her consciousness to cushion the shock of existence. Freud's concept of screen memories explains how memories often serve as distortions, as symbolic cover stories that conceal rather than reveal the truth of psychic life. Rachel is the literal embodiment of that concept, a subject built on defensive fantasy. She is human not by birth, but by identification. What she remembers becomes who she thinks she is. The horror of Blade Runner emerges from knowing that our memories may be unreliable, curated, or fragmentary, yet they determine our sense of self. For the replicants, this vulnerability is catastrophic. For humans, it's a reminder of our own fragility. The line separating the two grows flimsier with every encounter. Then there are the eyes, everywhere in the film, always watching. Eyes become the interface between truth and deception, the locus of the uncanny. The Voight-Kampff test, which detects replicants, measures involuntary ocular responses to emotionally provocative questions. The eyes reveal what the voice conceals. They betray the presence of an inner life. The replicant's eyes glow unnaturally. Their gaze turns back on us. But who is really conscious here? Who actually feels? Lacan would say that the gaze marks the moment when the subject loses mastery over perception, when the scene looks back, exposing the subject as object. In Blade Runner, the replicant gaze does exactly that. It confronts the humans with the mirror of their own desires, their disavowed cruelty, their unacknowledged longing for transcendence. The film's ethical crisis crystallizes in the replicants' rebellion. They have escaped their off-world servitude and returned to confront their creator, Dr. Eldon Tyrell, the corporate demiurge who designed them with built-in mortality. Their 4-year planned obsolescence functions as a technological death drive, a scheduled annihilation written into their DNA. Roy Batty, the leader of the rogue replicants, is driven by a recognizably human yearning for life. The entire trajectory of his rebellion is governed by an existential urgency. He wants to live long enough to become someone. He seeks more time. Roy's encounter with Tyrell is both Oedipal and tragic. The son faces the father denies his request. The son responds with a violent, anguished assertion of autonomy. This is the primal scene of individuation. The subject can only become whole through the symbolic death of the father. But Roy's story reaches its true emotional and philosophical height during the rooftop sequence, the tears and rain monologue. Roy saves Deckard's life. He spares the man who has been hunting him, and then he proceeds to deliver a statement that reveals his depth of reflection and experience of beauty and loss. He says, "I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain." The replicant's subjectivity lies in the intensity of his lived experience. His acceptance of mortality evokes an uncanny identification, and the boundary between human and machine dissolves. Paradoxically, a non-human entity confronts death with more dignity and more poetic acuity than the humans who engineered him. Deckard watches Roy die, and something shifts inside him. He begins to suspect that he too might be a construct. The origami unicorn left by Gaff lingers uncomfortably, whispering, "Your memories might not be yours. Your history might be fake. You might be the very thing you were trained to kill." The question of whether Deckard is human or replicant never requires an answer. The power lies in the subversion. Interiority, not origin, determines identity. Humanity becomes a psychological performance rather than a genetic fact. And hovering over all of this is the corporate creation myth, the Tyrell Corporation playing God without assuming responsibility. The replicants are designed to be perfect slaves for exploitation. Their suffering is the return of repressed guilt, the eruption of the death drive built into their making. Humans fear replicants because they expose the violence underlying the entire social order. And if a being built from synthetic materials can feel longing, loss, and love, then what exactly anchors our own humanity? The existential horror of Blade Runner is that humanity is nothing more than a set of borrowed memories and fragile desires, a flicker of consciousness dissolving in the rain. Until next time.
A big thank you to the brilliant Mary Wilde. And don't forget, Mary's book is now available to buy. You can get Psychoanalyzing Horror Cinema wherever you order your books. Or if you want to check out more of Mary's takes, you can also sign up to her Patreon, patreon.com/Mary Wilde. Okay, Lindsay, we should move on to Blade Runner 2049 in a moment. I just want to wrap up on Blade Runner by asking you, I guess, the movie itself got a bit of a lukewarm reception, weirdly, a bit of a mixed reception when it was first released in 1982. It's now often considered, you often see it these days at the top of lists of the greatest sci-fi movies ever made. Is it, Lindsay? Is Blade Runner the greatest sci-fi movie ever made?
Ooh. I know. It is that in 2001. Maybe Liam's just brainwashed me so much.
No, I think that's true.
They're up there. I think it is a masterpiece because of these questions, because you can can never get to the bottom of it. There's just always so much there. And also you can't get past the influence of the film. Yeah. On science fiction, on modern cinema, on representations of the city. I don't think you get The Matrix without
absolutely
Blade Runner. So I think it's definitely left its stamp that we see in other films. For sure. It is. You can feel its impact on, I would say, almost every sci-fi since, everything from Black Mirror to The Terminator to Battlestar Galactica to all the other zillion things we've seen. It is an astounding movie. It is. I don't know whether it's my personal favourite, but I can absolutely see why it tops so many best of lists. And God, it's just gorgeous. And also, by the way, we haven't really mentioned it, but that Vangelis music as well. Oh, yeah. Unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah. Unbelievable. It gives me chills every time, It's just, yeah. Yeah. Incredible. There you go. Is there anything else before we move on that we missed, or anything else you want to? I mean, I know that obviously we've only really scratched the surface with this movie. There's so much we could talk about, but is there anything else you want to mention before we move on? No, I think that's enough because like again, if we could just keep going on for another hour, or we could just put a pin in it now. Exactly. And I feel like with 2049 there's also a lot, right? There's a lot to dig into. So let's move on. Let's move on to the sequel. So we're jumping forward, right? What, like 20, 25 years, 35 years to 2017 to talk about Blade Runner 2049. So directed by Denis Villeneuve, of course. Lindsay, give us a little brief plot synopsis. What's this one all about? All right, so we have Los Angeles 2049. We follow Kay, a replicant Blade Runner who's ordered to retire Sapper Morton, who lives on a farm. After killing Sapper, Kay notices something on a scan on the ground under a tree, and in there is a box of replicant remains, which reveals that this replicant died in childbirth. So Kay is tasked with finding the child, retiring them, and destroying all evidence. So Kay goes to the Wallace Corporation, who has succeeded Tyrell in producing replicants. He finds out that the remains are of Rachel and also learns of her ties to Deckard. And then the CEO of Wallace Corporation, Neander Wallace, also learns that this is a replicant that has reproduced. He wants to find out how his replicants can reproduce so they can, millions more of them can be created and they can be this new, huge enslaved workforce. So he employs one of his replicants called Love to follow Kay around. Kay also sees the numbers carved into the tree at Sapper's farm and remembers that these same numbers, from a memory that he has implanted in him from as a childhood. This implant that about these numbers being on this toy horse.
Yes.
And so he goes to an orphanage from his memory and he finds the toy. And so that makes him believe that the memory must be real. It's not just an implant. And this is confirmed when he goes to meet Anna Stelline, who makes these memory implants. And she confirms to him this is from a real memory. So, and then at the same time, Kay's hologram girlfriend, Joy, becomes convinced that this is evidence that Kay is the replicant child, that he is special and that he was born, not made. So then his investigation takes him to a ruined Las Vegas where he finds Deckard, who tells him he left the child with the replicant freedom movement, and that was he left Rachel and the child in order to protect them. Love also arrives in Vegas. She kidnaps Deckard and she destroys Joy. Kay's rescued by the replicant freedom movement, who tell him that the child was a girl. So he is not the chosen one, and he then deduces that the maker of the memories, Anna Stelline, must have been that child. So she is Deckard and Rachel's daughter. Deckard is presented to Wallace, who offers him a duplicate Rachel. Deckard refuses. Then Love takes Deckard to be tortured further off-world. But then Kay arrives. He rescues Deckard. He kills Love. And then he takes Deckard to Anna. And so outside of the facility, Kay lies back and seemingly dies, and Deckard goes inside to be reunited with his lost daughter.
Yeah, a lot more actually going on. When you talk about the plot compared to the first one is relatively simple, right? And this one, there's a lot more, isn't there? There are more characters, there's more story, there's more stuff that you've got to kind of keep your head across as this movie goes on. You know?
Yeah, because it's so much. I mean, it's so much longer.
Yes,
I kind of feel like it's too long. I think there's too much. I sort of forgot how long it was, actually. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes, isn't it? It's a proper epic. Denis Villeneuve, he doesn't make films by half, does he? Like, he really goes for it. Look at Dune 2. You know, he makes these incredible, huge-scale, sweeping sci-fi epics, and he's very good at them. What do you think of the film generally, Lindsay, in comparison to the original? Yeah, I mean, like most people who like the original, when you find out there's a sequel, especially one so long after the original's been made, you go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And, this was 2017, so this was just as we were beginning to get the onslaught of the legacy sequels. I started to become more optimistic once I heard Denis Villeneuve was involved, because I liked pretty much everything he'd made up until that point.
Yeah.
And then the first trailer comes out and you see the images, Roger Deakins' cinematography, and you're like, oh my God, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw it at the cinema not long after it came out, and I think I did go to like quite a late showing. I may have had a few drinks, so I do remember kind of maybe nodding off a little bit.
Right. This is just what happens with Blade Runner movies.
Yeah,
with you,
maybe that's
Lindsay.
just how the first viewing goes. Then I went to the Prince Charles Cinema a couple of years after that, and they did a double bill of Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. So I was seeing them both then. I liked it. But seeing it right after the original, I just like the original so much more. I feel like there's so much more. Watching it again, you can't fault the look of it. It just looks so incredible. There's a lot that I really like about it. I like Ryan Gosling as the main character, as Kay.
Yeah.
I think some of what it's doing and interrogating about memory and nostalgia and what it's doing being this sequel, this legacy sequel. But a lot of it leaves me quite cold. I mean, Jared Leto.
Why is he in it?
I know, he just ruins it.
Yeah.
And then And stuff with joy, yeah, I'm not completely into that.
Okay.
And one thing that we'll get into is, this fixation on birth as the main signifier of humanity.
Right.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I absolutely loved this film when I first watched it, and I remember very clearly I watched it at a press screening. It was at the IMAX in London, so on this giant screen. I remember just being absolutely swept up in those visuals, in the soundtrack. I remember very vividly that the sound, the bassy music actually sort of going through me. I could like feel it in my seat, you know? And I was really, really knocked out by this movie. I actually think that I much preferred it to the original Blade Runner. I don't know if that's sacrilege to say, but I think definitely upon first viewing, I was like, wow, that for me is a much better, more fun, more entertaining, more accessible movie than the original Blade Runner. And it was kind of my favorite. Now, I've watched it a couple more times since, and actually it has slightly diminished for me on rewatch. And I think there's something really interesting in that. You know, it's got the opposite trajectory for me to the original movie, right? Where the original, I think, you know, both of us said we fell asleep the first time we watched the original. I found the first movie a bit of a slog when I first watched it, and it's a film that I've appreciated more and more on each viewing, and that you see more and you discover more and you think about more. I think because it's so opaque and so ambiguous. Whereas this movie, there is a little bit less ambiguity. It's much more story heavy. I actually think the characters are better in this movie. I like Ryan Gosling more than I like Harrison Ford in this film. And I like that it's got a bit of heart. It's got a bit more of a kind of love story element to it, which I personally quite like. But it leaves less to ponder, I guess, by the end of it. You know, It's so big, it's so much movie that by the end you actually feel kind of satisfied, right? Like you're not left with as much of a kind of head-scratching ambiguity as you are at the end of the original. So it's really interesting. I think on first viewing for me, I would say much better than the Ridley Scott original. And then upon repeat viewings and after a bit of time has passed, I still think it's brilliant. Maybe not as interesting as the original, but I would say in terms of, you know, this decade of legacy sequels we've had, even Harrison Ford, you know, like he's come back and reprised his 3 iconic roles in legacy sequels recently. He's done Indy, he's done Deckard, and he's done Han Solo. I would say this is by far the best of his legacy sequels, you know?
Definitely. I mean, it is good. I mean, when you look at, because I'm thinking this comes out 2017. So it comes out, I was looking it up. So it comes out, after The Force Awakens. It comes out after Jurassic World. I mean, this Jurassic World sequel, I haven't even watched the last couple because I've heard nothing but terrible things about them.
Do not watch the one where they brought back Sam Neill and Laura Dern. That was truly bad. Yeah, really bad.
I've not. And so... yeah, it's better than, and like also like I think a year or so or a couple of years before this comes out, Terminator Genesis comes out. Oh my God. That's so bad.
So bad.
Yeah. So it's not just like a lot of like I think you find it with The Force Awakens, definitely with Terminator Genesis and Jurassic World. It's almost like they're just rehashing the original. Like it's a lot of the same story beats.
Yes.
And it's there's that thing in South Park where they talk about member berries.
Yeah, I'm in there.
Yeah. So, and I always say that things are member berries when it's just doing that, where it's just like just remember the we like to do the first one. So it's definitely better than that. It comes out after, Mad Max Fury Road, I think to me is like the pinnacle.
Yes, absolutely.
Of the requels. So it doesn't reach the heights of Mad Max Fury Road. Also, I really, really, really love Creed.
Oh, I love Creed. Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
So those are ones that are the top.
Yeah.
Blade Runner 2049 is closer to them than closer to the member berry
Definitely.
And I really liked that it did not descend into the Chosen One narrative, which you do get with Star Wars and Terminator. And also there was like a Jason Bourne legacy sequel as well. So, the fact... So I think by not having K be the Chosen One, that was a good choice.
Agreed.
And it's maybe something about the confusion between nostalgia and memory.
Yeah.
And the whole thing of like, Kay confusing these memories as his own memories. And it's also, and I think there is this, one of the things I think that comes from his conversation with Anna was that she says something like that memories are put in because replicants' lives are so awful that they put the memories in as just something that they can look back on and smile.
Oh, God.
And so, but also there's this whole thing of like that, life is hard, but we have these nostalgia or these memories of especially these things that we love that we can look back on. And so they become so precious to us, but then we get very precious about them. And I think also, a couple of years after this film comes out, there was another kind of requel or whatever, legacy sequel, the television show Watchmen.
Oh, yeah. I loved that.
Yeah. And I really loved that. And that also had this idea of nostalgia.
Yes.
And like in that, nostalgia is the name of a drug and it becomes weaponized and abused. And so it's just interesting that I think when these legacy sequels, I think, are grappling with should I even exist is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And I think because I think Villeneuve really has reverence for the original. He's trying. It's almost like I'm trying. Yeah, I need this. I guess maybe I need to have the reason to exist, or I want to not just give you the rehash. I want to do something else with it.
Absolutely.
And there isn't a luxuriating in the imagery of the past with the like the original, like with the noir aspects, that people aren't living amongst the past images, that they're only in ruins.
It's really barren, this, in comparison, isn't it? You don't have those busy cities and crowds, and it's a lot of like big sweeping sort of empty spaces in this movie in comparison, isn't it? It feels really empty and desolate in comparison to the first movie.
And I think this whole idea, especially Deckard in this ruined Las Vegas, and it's something that I have to give credit to Liam again. He came up with this. He kind of was like, the Deckard is a relic of nostalgia amongst all these other relics, because you've got like the Elvis and the Frank Sinatra there.
Yeah.
And so this whole idea of like, also, you've got Harrison Ford. Shambling around with all these relics.
And they really don't. They really don't sort of shy away from the fact that Harrison Ford looks old in this, right? Like they deliberately kind of make him look a bit schlubby, right, in this. Like, he does just look like a guy in his 70s, in a T-shirt, looking a bit sweaty and a bit old compared to how he did. And I think you're right. Like, there is this kind of interesting link with the past that this movie is kind of exploring. And, the last decade, we have been obsessed with nostalgia, haven't we? That is like, everything from Stranger Things to the sequels and legacy sequels and everything. Everything is about going back to a time that we will have in our head was better than right now, I think, right? And maybe Blade Runner is kind of part of that as well. What about Denis Villeneuve as a director then? So you mentioned you like his other work. In comparison to Ridley Scott, what do you think of him as a filmmaker?
Yeah, I really like it. I like his stuff. I mean, I probably prefer Arrival and his Dune adaptations to this. I really love the Dune films.
Arrival is a masterpiece. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I think he was a good choice. I think I've probably even a better choice than, say, bringing Ridley Scott back. I don't know if Ridley Scott would put the effort. We
all saw Prometheus.
Yes. Oh, my God. Yes, that's another one. Oh, no, I don't like that at all. But I know that Ridley Scott was somewhat involved. I also like that Villeneuve got a lot of people from the original film, like Hampton Fancher, the original screenwriter. It's based on a story. In fact, another thing that I got from the Dangerous Days documentary, which I had seen before years ago, but then I hadn't seen it since Blade Runner 2049 came out. And in this Dangerous Days documentary, they talk about that the first original scene of Blade Runner was... It would have been, I think, Deckard coming in to someone's house and the whole thing about the pot boiling on the stove. Oh. So the opening of Blade Runner 2049, I'm pretty sure, is taking what Hampton Fancher wrote as the original first scene of Blade Runner.
That makes sense. That does make sense, because it very much introduces the idea of what a Blade Runner is and does, right? Makes sense.
And it is a great scene.
Really
like
good.
The whole thing, the boiling on the pot and just the silence and the the character of Sapper, I think, is really great. He's just small role, but
brilliant. Dave Bautista, excellent. Yeah.
Villeneuve is probably interested more in human drama and human relationships than Ridley Scott is.
Yes, I think that's why for me I loved this one actually more the first time I watched it, because I was like, oh, this is what I wanted from the original. Like, you've got a lot of kind of human dynamics going on in this movie, way more than the original.
But I think that's also why the film is so long, because we've got all the story of Kay and his home life, and this relationship with Joy, which I think we're meant to feel is real love between them. And we're supposed to really, and I don't particularly get that. But I think there's definitely, I mean, it's a less complicated love than with Rachel and Deckard. It does feel, it's definitely less compromised and complicated and innocent. There is something about that they're too innocent.
Very innocent. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think Villeneuve was the right person to take over the sequel.
I think so. People compare him to Chris Nolan a lot, and I think, again, this is how he's different to Chris Nolan, is that I think he's got a bit more heart and warmth than Chris Nolan as well. I'm really glad Chris Nolan didn't do this, to be honest. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of his work, and I like this, and I like the character of Kay. Let's talk about him, because there is almost this opposite trajectory with Deckard, I think, where Deckard is this character who you increasingly question whether or not he is even human. This idea of like, oh, you think he's human and actually maybe he's not by the end. Whereas it's the opposite, isn't it, really, with Kay? You kind of introduced to him knowing he's a replicant, and then there is this almost Pinocchio story of him becoming a real boy and finding a soul almost by the end of the movie, right? So they're kind of mirror image characters and journeys almost, I think they go on. But what do you think of Kay and that Ryan Gosling performance?
I think Ryan Gosling is really good in the role. I think there's definitely more humanity and empathy with Kay than there ever is with Deckard.
Yeah.
And the fact, which again would make sense to me, that Deckard is human, because we're told that it's very clear that Kay is a replicant. Yeah. But yet there's more humanity and empathy to him.
Right, yeah.
There's maybe some sense of longing that, also reminds me of Roy Batty. I mean, both are blonde, both wanting to have this life, have a life, some meaning in their life.
Yeah.
And I think there's also, there's definitely this trajectory, and that, with that meeting with Sapper that happens right at the beginning, he obviously is making a very clear distinction between him and the replicants that he tracks down. Because I think he says, because Sapper says, you're killing your own kind, and he's like, my kind don't run. And so it's this whole thing that he's obviously made, that he's, I think they even call him at one point Constant K. That he's just this very reliable. He just does his job.
Exactly.
But then I think like Deckard, this encounter with a replicant kind of changes him. And what he does and what he will fight for. And I think one of the really interesting things that happens quite early on is when he finds out that there's this child replicant that's been born, and that he's told to retire this child, find the child and retire them. And he says, I was never retired anything that was born before. And the lieutenant, played by Robert Wright, says, what's the difference? And he says, to be born is to have a soul, I guess. And so I guess so it's this whole idea of that he doesn't feel that he has a soul, and then maybe when there is this possibility that he does have a soul, then that's kind of what changes him. It's like, okay, I've just always thought that this is all I am. Then maybe there is.
It's so interesting. You're right. There's nothing about him actually that changes. It's just his knowledge of his own origin changes, and then he finds a soul, right? Again, very much kind of blurring that line of, well, what is a soul then? What is the difference between a replicant and a human? As long as you believe you are one, is that all that matters, essentially, right?
And then I think also in that same conversation, when he says something about, I didn't know I had the option of, I think he was saying, I didn't know I had the option to say no to something.
Yes.
And so it's also, I guess, it's finding free will and choice as well. That's definitely something that comes when he finds the other replicants. It's like, we do have free will and we do have choice. And it's like, well, what are you going to fight for? because you don't just have to be this machine that does what it's programmed to do.
Yeah, exactly. I think he says, doesn't he, like, when I didn't know I had a choice, and Robin Wright says, attaboy, you know, as if to be like, yeah, like, stay in line, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's a massive supporting cast, actually, in this. I kind of forget how many characters and how many people pop up in this. What do you think of them all? Have we got too many characters and too much going on, do you think, in this? With Robin Wright, and then we've also got Jared Leto, and then we've got the character of Love, and we've got the, you know, Joy, obviously, and we've got, like, then we bring back Deckard. And, you know, is there too much going on, do you think, in this movie?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, I just wish they had not cast Jared Leto.
I know, it's very distracting, isn't it, seeing him?
Yeah. But I love Dave Bautista. I love the character of Sapper. You've got other good actors like Mackenzie Davis. I always like. She's
great.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah.
But I mean, again, there's not. Is there much to what she does? Her role. Yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it definitely did strike me this time. It does seem a bit just too much. Like, it could have been pared down
a lot. It could have been maybe
bit.
Streamlined a little bit, couldn't it? I think.
Yeah, because I think it obviously is trying to give us this almost like Kay's home life, and there is this whole thing with Joy, and I think, I don't know, I could have done without that maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Funnily enough, that's actually some of the stuff that I didn't mind so much. I quite liked that they actually gave us a sense of this character and his home life and everything. Again, compared to Deckard, which they don't really give us at all. I quite liked that we spend a bit of time with that. But you're right. I don't know whether I quite am as invested in their love story, I guess, as maybe the film wants me to be, that she's this kind of hologram, and there are these quite sweet, sad moments where they can't actually ever make physical contact, and he gets that little device where he's able to like take her outside into the rain, and again the importance of like the rain coming down on her and everything, and then they have that kind of slightly awkward sex scene with the sex worker who sort of inhabits her body and everything, right? And again, I think there are a lot of like really interesting thematic things going on here about, you know, what it means to fall in love as these machines, these replicants and stuff, but yeah, maybe there were one or two too many scenes of that in this movie. I don't know.
I mean, it's the whole thing of like, we have to invest in a relationship where the man has bought the woman and she's programmed to just do what he tells her to do.
Absolutely.
You know, it's hardly an equal relationship.
No, and actually, like, I think the film sort of knows that, because then there's that moment when it really presents us with that in quite an overt, explicit way, when you see the giant billboard version of her with her breasts out, right, who like comes down towards Kay, and you suddenly go, oh yeah, this is just a sort of gross exploitative product that he bought, right? And the film is very much kind of telling us that at that point, it feels like.
And then she calls him Joe, because there's the whole thing of that he almost becomes Joe rather than Kay, and Deckard calls him Joe.
Yeah.
And that's the name that she has given him. But then she uses that when it's just the hologram. So again, it might just be in the programming of just,
right, exactly. Yeah, it's bleak. And what is Jared Leto, what is his character up to when you see those kind of like slimy newborn replicants? Like, I didn't quite get what was going on there with those.
Because I think his whole thing, I think, so he's taken over from Tyrell.
Yeah.
And so we never really saw how, like, that moment of, I don't know, activation.
Yeah.
In the Tyrell ones, but I think it's all part to do with this fixation in the film with birth, that she comes out of like almost this sack, and she's kind of covered in fluid. It's like a newborn baby, and but it's a full grown naked woman. So there's just all this imagery. I mean, there's imagery of birth, I think, throughout a lot of the film. There's even the bit where Kay goes to Deckard's apartment and he kind of slices it down. It just reminds me of like that scene. And
absolutely.
I mean, towards the end with Love and Deckard in that, it's like a pod. And there's water, and it's so there's lots of there's just this fixation on birth, and so with Wallace, it's that he wants the secret of replicant reproduction, and he hasn't been able to crack it. So, and he thinks, well, Tyrell has, and I want that secret. And yeah, so it is very much this whole which I have a problem with, that this whole idea that to be human is to just be
able to reproduce. Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. I mean, I think, from a sci-fi idea perspective, I do think that's kind of interesting, because it's like, okay, is that the one thing at this point that differentiates, replicants from humans? Maybe not, and I think it's interesting that it's explored in this movie. But I can understand from your perspective that it maybe leans a little bit too much into that, which it doesn't at all need to in the first film.
And I think that was one of the good things about the first Blade Runner, is that it just didn't rely on these images of birth.
No.
I think, yeah, it's very much the sequel. It does seem to be reducing it to the physical and biological. And for me, the original one is very spiritual, philosophical. So there's that difference there that
Funnily enough, it almost feels like it's taking more themes from the kind of Ridley Scott Alien and Prometheus playbook, right? That idea of kind of birth and evolution and that kind of thing that Ridley Scott has kind of feels like he's been fascinated with, since making Alien. So let's talk about when Deckard comes back into it then. Like, how did you find that, the return of Deckard? And it's a good sort of at least an hour into the movie, right, before we get him, and that great sequence in Las Vegas. But how did you find it, seeing Harrison Ford and seeing Deckard back in this movie?
I think he's fine. He definitely, like you said, he has that weariness to him.
He does.
But that's Deckard. Yeah. Deckard's always been weary. Being alone in this ruined Las Vegas for however long would do that to you as well. He doesn't really have to. The thing is that Deckard, it's the same in the first film. He's just kind of reacting. He's just there. And so he doesn't really do anything in this sequel. He's just there, and he gets found, and then he gets kidnapped, and then he gets rescued. It's just Harrison Ford. He just has to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we have to. It's a Blade Runner movie. We have to have Deckard.
Well, he's almost a kind of. He's like almost a MacGuffin in this film, isn't he? He's like a plot device for Kay to find, and it's interesting. It's kind of, he's just there as the object to be tracked down by the other characters, I suppose, or protected or killed or whatever, But I also, again, I don't know. This is also ambiguous, isn't it? But what about the fact that he has aged and he has lived for 30 years? Doesn't that also suggest that he's human and not a replicant? Yeah,
I don't know. Or he could be, because I don't know if it was even clear in the original that Rachel, did she have the short lifespan as well?
Right, yeah.
So if he's somehow this newer, because I think they say, so the Roy and Priston and the others, they're Nexus 6. I think they refer to Rachel at some point. Is she Nexus 7 or 8 or something? So she's obviously a later model, and then if Deckard is a replicant, then he would have to be this later model. But I don't know. And maybe I think what's interesting about the film is that it doesn't even go there. It doesn't question at all. Is he a replicant as well?
It doesn't even raise that question. I think that's really good that the movie, Denis Villeneuve didn't even want to
swerved it.
Touch on that subject. Yeah, and again, I guess there are all kinds of questions. The fact that he may have conceived a child with Rachel. Again, does that give you more evidence that actually he's probably human or not? I think, it's interesting. I like that all of those questions still linger by the end of this movie, And of course, we do get a bit of Rachel, a bit of de-aged Sean Young, I suppose, as a kind of, I guess she's sort of a hologram type thing, right? What do you think of that, of that actually bringing that character back for a scene?
I think that is actually a really great moment, a kind of perfect moment of interrogating why this film exists and questioning whether it actually should.
Yeah.
Because what's happening here is that Deckard is being offered Rachel as she was, as he remembers her. It's almost like, I'm giving you exactly what you remember, what you want.
Yeah.
Here it is, almost perfect. And he rejects it. He's like, and he says, her eyes were green. It's like, you didn't even get it right.
Yeah.
He knows it's not real. And so it's this whole thing about the film. It's like, I'm giving you, that maybe a lot of fans were like, I want you to give me exactly what I remember, how I remember it, in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is Wallace is very cynical. He's like the studios who are like, here, we're giving you exactly what you want. It's exactly how you remember it. It's exactly the same.
And it feels kind of empty and uncanny, right? It's I think that's really genius, actually. You know what it reminds me of, Lindsay, is Twin Peaks: The Return. That is that exact same thing, isn't it? Of like, is this really what you want, or do you want something different? You know, that idea of like exploring the whole idea of what it means to go back to a property from 30 years earlier, and you know, whether you lean into nostalgia or whether you don't, or whether you tackle that as its subject matter. And I like that this movie is kind of really interestingly exploring that, you know,
because I think it's the whole thing of like Denis Villeneuve's like, all right, this is gonna get made, so I'm gonna take it on because I at least want to give you something that is adding and not just rehashing, trying to give something of substance, something that's actually questioning why it should exist. So I think that scene is really, really ends up being a crucial moment. That is this Wallace is like, I'm giving you exactly what you want. It's exactly the same.
There's something incredibly sad about the whole movie, I think, actually, isn't there? Like, I don't know, every single character, every setting we go to, there's just this vast kind of emptiness about everyone in it and all of their lives and all of the spaces we're in. And again, there's that feeling of like, maybe the emptiness of nostalgia or going back or memories or whatever, I don't know, but like there's a real sadness, I find, to just like everything that happens in this movie, all the way to the very end as Ryan Gosling lies down in the snow, you know?
Yeah, and it is that whole thing of like all these stories, and this whole thing of being the chosen one. Yeah. And so it's almost like feeding us with, oh, you're going to be the chosen one, and he's like,
absolutely.
And he's not.
And he's not. And I'm like the same as you, Lindsay. I'm so glad that they sort of teased that and then deliberately went the other way. They went the way that Rian Johnson did in The Last Jedi, which then the franchise swerved, handbrake turned back on in the next movie. But I'm glad that they avoided that. And what do you think of the girl that, the daughter that lives in the big glass room on the other side of the screen, and how did you find her and those scenes?
I mean, she's really interesting because there's this whole thing of like, so she says she's got some, is it an immune condition?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the whole thing. It's pretty much all the women in the film, and there was some controversy when the film came out about objectification and sexism, or possibly, of the film, and definitely all the women in the film are all enclosed, all in boxes. Even Robin Wright, you see her, she's always inside, and there's always these shots of her from outside looking through a window. Yeah,
always behind glass. Yeah, absolutely.
And then you have Anna is behind glass. But there's some really interesting, there is a lot that she's saying, I think, that's quite important in that first meeting when she's talking about memories. And that's when she says, they give the memories to replicants, because their lives are so terrible, for them to have, look back with fondness. And she also kind of talks about, like, I think the thing about memory isn't detail, it's emotion. And I think she says something like, we recall with our feelings, anything we recall should be a mess.
Yeah, I love that.
And so that's why her memories I just seem more vivid. And there is that whole thing of Kay, I think, ends up realizing that the memories that he has are hers because she ends up seeing them, and she reacts in this very emotional way. And I think when he finds out that he's not the child, he remembers her reaction, and maybe he kind of realizes that, I mean, his attachment to the memories weren't emotional like that he saw when she reacted or something. Yeah.
Do we know why he has her memories? Like, do they explain that? Like, why they're in his head?
She is a designer. She says that she's not employed by Wallace, but she's a freelance memory maker.
Right.
So that's all she can do. She's enclosed in this space, and so she designs these memories to put into replicants.
I see. So she's taken something from her own past for his.
And I think that's actually supposed to be illegal. You're not supposed to do that. That's another thing. So, but because she does that, it leads him to reunite them. Yeah.
And again, it's a kind of beautiful and sad arc that he goes through, that journey of, oh my God, I'm human, or I've got a soul, or I was born, and the way his character changes throughout the movie. And then again, that complete kind of emptiness at the end of like, nope, it was all for nothing, basically, you know.
Well, I think he has.
But then, or was it? You know,
he does save. He saves Deckard, like Roy does. He reunites. So he's done something good, I guess.
Yeah, and again, I guess that's the point, isn't it? Is that it almost doesn't matter. That you know, again, what's the difference between Kay and these other characters? You know.
Yeah.
So I mean, in that regard, I think the film is such a great companion to the original, because it is just kind of exploring those themes in a different kind of way with a different story this time, and beautiful visuals, by the way. I mean, I feel like we should just say again how good this film looks. Roger Deakins cinematography, also the action sequences, I think, are actually really good. I love the fight scene in the Vegas theater with the Elvis hologram popping in and out and everything. I think that's an amazing standout sequence.
Yeah, because it kind of it is slightly reminiscent of him and Roy chasing each other.
Yeah.
But again, it's just these images that cut out, and suddenly the sound blares, and it is really well done. I mean, definitely I think what's interesting is when so everyone talks about the original Blade Runner, and they just talk about Ridley Scott, the design, and with Blade Runner 2049, there is so much, is always like singling out, I should say, Roger Deakins.
Yes.
That he is seen almost as the visionary, almost as much as Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah.
Because it is just incredible.
Oh my God.
The look of the film.
It is beautiful. I forgot how stunning it was until I rewatched it this week. It is really beautiful. And then, you know, again, those moments of the the snow coming down at the very end, and again, how do you read the ending? Is that a happy ending for Deckard at the end there, kind of reaching to the glass to his daughter on the other side? What do you think?
I think it is different to the ending of Blade Runner, which is just complete ambiguity. I think this, you get resolution, and I do think it is a happy ending.
Yeah, I think so.
There's a reunion happening.
It feels a bit more hopeful somehow, doesn't it? Yeah.
I just hope, and just hope that Deckard doesn't fuck it up by being Deckard.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully he's learned a bit over the years.
Do you think, would you welcome another story in this world? Another Blade Runner film, another Blade Runner sequel?
I don't know, because I think at some point we've never gone off-world, and I kind of feel like one day someone's going to go, what if we went to the off-world colonies?
I wonder.
I'm just waiting. I mean, I'm not hanging out for a new one, to be honest.
No, absolutely.
Because this does have that resolution and that somewhat happy ending. It would be a good place just to end it. I don't think they're gonna be trotting Harrison Ford out, till the end.
I know, it's so funny. Yeah, I wonder whether we will. Obviously, there have been a couple of other little spin-offs. There was an animated series, Blade Runner Black Lotus, right, in 2021. But it feels like if they can tell more stories in this world, they will, I think. And I'm pretty sure 2049 did really well, didn't it? Financially and critically as well. So,
and there were these little short films that were released before, because the whole idea of the blackout,
that's right,
that they talk about, and I think and the fact that there was 40 years between the two films, that I think there were these short films, because I remember them being released on YouTube before the film came out, and Denis Villeneuve doesn't direct them, but he does a bit of intro, and he goes, so there are like these sanctioned short films. I didn't get to watch them again, and they are, because we got the a really good 4K Blu-ray of 2049, which I think you can't watch that film in a
standard
in a
definition
bad
or something.
version.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it calls for that as best as you can get. And they do have the shorts on there, but I didn't have a chance to watch them again. But I remember, I think one of them was animated, and I think, I wouldn't mind watching them again.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember thinking they were all right.
Definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of amazing stuff to do with this film. And I can't remember if we really properly talked about him, but I think Ryan Gosling is a great leading man as well, you know? Like, I think he's got that similar kind of charisma to Harrison Ford, which is he doesn't need to do much, and he's very compelling, you know? Ever since we saw him in movies like Drive, he has this quite minimalist way about him, doesn't he? But he conveys a lot, I feel like, with very little.
Yeah,
you know?
and I mean, one of the things I do really love about the film is those baseline tests.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like the Voight Kampf thing where it's testing whether you're a replicant or not. I guess this baseline thing is about kind of keeping the replicants at a baseline, keeping them under control.
Yeah, but keeping them constant and and
it's just so quick and the interlinked cells. I love it.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, there's a kind of eerie atmosphere almost to them, isn't there? Like it's a brainwashing thing they're in or something. It's really great. Yeah, there you go. God, I can't believe this movie is 8 years old already. Actually, like it's only a couple of years away from being a decade. Oh, that's mad to me because it still feels like that just came out, you know. But I do think I think visually and technically it holds up really well. I think that because it's a bit longer and there's a bit less ambiguity. Weirdly, that means it doesn't actually warrant as many rewatches, maybe, as the original, you know? So it's interesting in that regard.
No.
So there you go. I think that's it, right? I mean, what a brilliant pair of films to discuss, Lindsay. And I imagine, you know, somebody that teaches film and researches film, these films, and especially the original Blade Runner, it must pop up a lot in conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good one to teach and to get students talking about it. And I think that's one thing about 2049 I have to say that I think definitely a lot of my students and I think a lot of younger people, I think they probably prefer Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
It feels like blasphemous to me. But I know so many of them loved it. And I know a lot of them say that maybe it's a shame, but I think sometimes some of them find the original Blade Runner, they do find it a bit boring.
Hard work. Yeah, I mean, I sort of had the same thing with first watches of both. I would have said I had a much better time with 24. I think 2049 is more accessible somehow than the original, you know? There's such a coldness to the original. However, I think over time I've changed my mind on that, and I'm sure over time the students will change their mind on that too, you know.
But I think it's important though that this sequel is drawing them in, and I think I just know that a lot of them have really responded in particular to Blade Runner 2049. So, and I think that's a good thing. whatever gets them into it is important.
Totally. I think it proves that it's done something right, actually, that it stands on its own as its own film, and that for a lot of people it's the favourite of the two, you know? So that is really interesting, I think. Whereas I don't think anyone is going to say that The Force Awakens is their favourite of the Star Wars, you know? So, yeah. Well, there we go. Well, Lindsay, thank you. This has been so much fun. I'm actually quite impressed that we managed to talk about both of these massive films in under 2 hours, because I was worried there would be too much to say. But thank you very much. This has been so much fun. And just a final question for you. In this kind of whole horror subgenre of man-made monsters, do you have a particular favourite, would you say?
All right. I mean, there's this and there's 2001, but
yeah.
And I know you're looking at Ex Machina, aren't you? I love
Ex
that
Machina,
one, and Pulse.
Yes. Oh my god.
And
Pulse.
I mean, I love 2 films from the last year, The Substance and Poor Things.
Yes, which is going to be our last pairing of the series.
Yeah. But I am actually going to go a bit left field and say Flesh for Frankenstein. I love Flesh for Frankenstein.
That film, I think, maybe gave me more joy than any other film I've watched so far this series.
Yeah.
I've laughed so much. It's incredible. Yeah. Excellent choice. I love that. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much. Just remind people again where they can find you, where they can find your podcast if they want to come and hear more of you.
Yes, so you can find me on social media, mostly on Instagram at The Horrible Dr. Hallam. And yes, please check out my podcast, Sci-Frights.
Yes.
So it's Sci's in sci-fi, but Sci-Frights, that I host with my partner Liam Dunn. So yeah, we look at different themes through horror and science fiction.
I love that. What a cool idea. Amazing. Lindsay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me back.
And that's it for this week. Thank you all so much for listening. We got through 2 epic movies there in just over 2 hours, which is pretty good going, I would say. So let me know your thoughts. What do you think about Blade Runner and its sequel? I would love to hear people's takes. You can email me, evolutionofhorror@gmail.com. You can also find Evolution of Horror on Facebook and on Instagram. You can find me, Mike Muncer, on Instagram and on Blue Sky. If you want to get ad-free versions of this podcast, you can sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/evolutionofhorror. That will also get you bonus episodes every single week, depending on which tier you sign up to. This podcast is part of the Evolution of Horror network. You can also hear 2 other weekly podcasts that are going on right now. Our Hammer Horror podcast, Hammer Time, with Becky Dark and Kevin Lyons, and our Carry On podcast, Carry On Up the Podcast, with me and Susan Cowman. There is also an entire Twin Peaks podcast, which is now finished, The Detective and the Log Lady, with me and Stacey Ponder. You can find all of those pods wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice if you get a spare minute, as that always helps us get discovered by new listeners. So, on to next week then, and it's an absolute doozy next week. A bit of a handbrake turn tonally into something a little bit more fun and frothy. Next week, I'm going to be joined by Jamie Graham to discuss 2 Stephen King movies about the dangers of cars and automobiles. We are going to be discussing Christine from 1983 and Maximum Overdrive from 1986. Cannot wait. Join us next week for all of this and more on the Evolution of Horror.